Number 1, which of the following is least important as a reason for a written investment policy statement? The IPS may be required by regulation. Having a written IPS is part of best practice for a portfolio manager. Having a written IPS ensures the client's risk and return objectives can be achieved. Well, just because it's written down doesn't ensure that you're going to actually achieve those objectives. So C is the least important. Number 2, which of the following best describes the underlying rationale for a written investment policy statement? A written IPS communicates a plan for trying to achieve investment success. A written IPS provides investment managers with a ready defense against client lawsuits. A written IPS allows investment managers to instruct clients about the proper use and purpose of investments. And which of the following best describes it? We can see that B and C. B simply just cannot be right. And C, that doesn't sound right at all. A, written IPS communicates a plan for trying to achieve investment success. Yes. Number 3, a written investment policy statement is most likely to succeed if it is created by a software program to assure consistent quality. It is a collaborative effort of the client and the portfolio manager. It reflects the investment philosophy of the portfolio manager. Well, any manager will tell you, if you want to get buy-in from your employees about the vision and the mission of the company, include them in. If you're doing some strategic planning, include your employees in, you will get buy-in. So make it a collaborative effort of the client and the portfolio manager, most likely to succeed. 4, the section of the investment policy statement that provides information about how policy may be executed, including investment constraints, is best described as the investment objectives, investment guidelines, statements of duties and responsibilities. It's information about how the policy may be executed, including constraints. The investment objectives, these are your risk objectives and your return objectives. Those are just your objectives. It doesn't state how you will achieve them. This is saying how it may be executed. So to follow a process, we need guidelines, investment guidelines. Which of the following is least likely to be placed in the appendices to an investment policy statement? Rebalancing policy, strategic asset allocation, or statement of duties and responsibilities? We said the appendices would have our rebalancing policy and our strategic asset allocation. Statement of duties and responsibilities, that was a separate section of the IPS altogether, so it is least likely to include that. 6, which of the following typical topics in an investment policy statement is most closely linked to the client's distinctive needs? Which of the following is most closely linked to that? Procedures, investment guidelines, statements of duties and responsibilities. Well, that sounds like guidelines to me, right? Closely linked to the client's distinctive needs. 7, an investment policy statement that includes a return objective of outperforming the FTSE 100 by 120 basis points is best characterized as having a relative return objective, absolute return objective, arbitrage-based return objective. Well, it's in comparison to the FTSE 100, so that is a relative return objective. Risk assessment questionnaires for investment management clients are most useful in measuring value at risk, ability to take risk, or willingness to take risk. Well, this is a questionnaire. If we're giving a questionnaire, we're trying to get at something about the person, their disposition perhaps. That is their willingness to take risk. Their ability to take risk, we would look at things like their income, their current wealth. So we wouldn't really have to ask them about their ability. We can assess their ability. But as far as willingness goes, well, that's very hard to measure. You got to talk to the person and get an idea of their disposition towards risk. 9, which of the following is best characterized as a relative risk objective? Value at risk for the fund will not exceed $3 million. That's an absolute statement. The fund will not underperform the DAX by more than 250 basis points. That's relative. I can stop right there. But let's just eliminate the third. The fund will not lose more than $2.5 million in the coming 12-month period. That is an absolute statement as well. This is your relative statement. 10. In preparing an investment policy statement, which of the following is most difficult to quantify? Time horizon, ability to accept risk, or willingness to accept risk? Well, it's the most subjective one. It's the one where you have to ask questions, get a questionnaire out, and try to assess an individual's disposition. Anytime you're trying to assess some kind of psychological dimension of an individual, very difficult to measure. Willingness to accept risk. A client who is a 34-year-old widow with 2 healthy young children aged 5 and 7 has asked you to help her form an investment policy statement. She has been employed as an administrative assistant in a bureau for national government for the previous 12 years. She has 2 primary financial goals, her retirement and providing for the college education of her children. The client's time horizon is best described as being, well, she's 34, retirement is 31 years away, that's long term. But it's also college education of her children. We'll take the oldest one here, 7, and let's assume they go to university or college at 18 or 19. That's 11 to 12 years away. If we think about a bond, a long-term bond is anything over 10 years, so we'll think about this the same way. It's 11 to 12 years. If we bought an investment that matched that time horizon, we'd be buying a long-term bond, so we could describe her time horizon as long-term. The timing of payouts for property and casualty insurers is unpredictable in comparison with the timing of payouts for life insurance companies. Therefore, in general, property and casualty insurers have lower liquidity needs, greater liquidity needs, or higher return objective than life insurance companies. Well, we certainly wouldn't say lower liquidity needs. If it's unpredictable, you got to have money around. You have to have near cash. So we wouldn't say it's lower, we would say it's greater, but let's look at this last one. A higher return objective? Well, we don't know that. You don't know if they're going to have a higher return. They may have the same return objective, they just differ in their liquidity. So 14 would be B. A client who is a director of a publicly listed corporation is required by law to refrain from trading that company's stock at certain points of the year when disclosure of financial results are pending. In preparing a written investment policy statement for this client, this restriction on trading is irrelevant to the IPS, should be included in the IPS, or makes it illegal for the portfolio manager to work with this client. Well, this is a pretty important point. We can't say that it's irrelevant to the IPS. And C, makes it illegal for the portfolio manager to work with this client. No, it does not. That just simply is not true. On the face of it, we can get rid of that. So yeah, it should be included in the IPS. I think that was an easy one. All right, lots of words on the screen here. After interviewing a client in order to prepare a written investment policy statement, you have established the following. The client has earnings that vary dramatically between £30,000 and £70,000 pre-tax, depending on weather patterns in Britain. In 3 of the previous 5 years, the after-tax income of the client has been less than £20,000. The client's mother is dependent on her son, the client, for approximately £9,000 support per year. The client's own subsistence needs are approximately $12,000 per year. The client has more than 10 years experience trading investments, including commodity futures, stock options, and selling stock short. The client's responses to a standard risk assessment questionnaire suggest he has above average risk tolerance. The client is best described as having, and we see that we have to rate them on ability and willingness. So even without looking, we can see that they have a willingness to take risks. So their willingness is high, but their ability based on their income and their needs is low. So we have somebody here with low ability, high willingness. Let's see if we have that. Well, C, B, and C are both high ability. We know they don't have high ability. We can stop right there. That would have been a quick one. But let's just make sure it's true. Low ability to take risk, a high willingness to take risk. There we go. After interviewing a client in order to prepare a written investment policy statement, you have established the following. The client has earnings that have exceeded £120,000 pre-tax each year for the past 5 years. She has no dependents. The client's subsistence needs are approximately $45,000 per year. The client states she feels uncomfortable with her lack of understanding of securities markets. All of the client's current savings are invested in short-term securities guaranteed by an agency of her national government. The client's responses to a standard risk assessment questionnaire, she has low risk tolerance. So it looks like we're going to rate them on ability and willingness. So willingness, we're told right here, is low. But ability, if we look at the spread between what she needs and what she takes in, her ability is high. So let's see if we have high ability, low willingness. We have low ability, we can get rid of that. We have 2 that are high ability, so we must move to willingness. And there's our low willingness, high ability, low willingness. So returns on asset classes are best described as being a function of the failure of arbitrage, exposure to the idiosyncratic risks of those asset classes, or exposure to the sets of systematic factors relevant to those asset classes. So we're talking about an asset class as a whole. So you can get rid of arbitrage. We're not talking about individual securities. We're talking about an asset class as a whole. Exposure to the idiosyncratic risks of those asset classes, or exposure to sets of systematic factors relevant to those asset classes. Well, in a particular asset classes, you have many, many securities. So an asset class has a set of systematic risks or systematic factors that drive it, not idiosyncratic risks. Those are individual securities. Get rid of that. C. Consider the pairwise correlations of monthly returns of the following asset classes: Brazilian equities, East Asian equities, European equities, and U.S. equities. Okay. Based solely on the information in the table, it says the above table, but it's below, which equity asset class is most sharply distinguished from U.S. equities? So let's find U.S. equities. Here we are at the bottom, and we want the asset class with the lowest correlation with U.S. equities. Brazilian equities, 0.76. East Asian, no, that's 0.88. So far, Brazilian's in the lead. European at 0.9. Nope, Brazilian. 0.76 has the lowest, so we will take A. That was easy enough to do, wasn't it? In defining asset classes as part of the strategic asset allocation decision, pairwise correlations within asset classes should generally be equal to correlations among, lower than correlations among, or higher than correlations among. So we have asset class 1, asset class 2, asset class 3, and you have pairwise correlations, but you also have correlations within. Obviously, the correlations within should be higher than the correlations among, right? And this is asking us, pairwise correlations within should be higher than correlations among. 19. Tactical asset allocation is best described as attempts to exploit arbitrage possibilities among asset classes, the decision to deliberately deviate from the policy portfolio, selecting asset classes with the desired exposures to sources of systematic risk in an investment portfolio. Well, tactical is an intentional departure from the strategic asset allocation. Deliberately deviate, the decision to deliberately deviate. B.